All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast. I have CEO of MVP Mailhouse, Aaron Boone, with me. Aaron, thanks for joining the show today, man.
Hello, hello. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Mark.
You bet. Yeah, I'm stoked to hear from you because we talked a little bit before I hit record, but just how direct mail is I mean, a lot of people have some interesting thoughts about direct mail. They see it maybe as archaic. They see it as maybe not as viable nowadays. But I also know people too on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of clients that have used it in the past and seen tremendous success from it. So I'm excited to dive into that. But first, why don't you take a minute or two and just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and tell us what's going on with the helmets in the back of your picture right there.
All right. Well, yeah, great. So, yeah, as you mentioned, my name's Aaron Boone. I'm founder of MVP Mailhouse. It stands for Most Valuable Practice. And it also lets me talk a little bit of sports because that's a
Yeah.
big part of my background. So, I grew up on a goat farm, one of 10 kids. I'm the runt at 6'3", 210. My sisters are bigger than me. A hairier knuckle. No, I'm just kidding. My sisters are great. Um, Big family. My ticket off the farm was sports. I actually walked on to a junior college. I was student body president of my high school, so I had a small scholarship to help pay for school, and I
Yeah.
I walked on and became an All-American. I switched from quarterback to a receiver, and that was kind of my spot. So I played a receiver after junior college. I had offers all over the country, and I chose Kentucky. That's that helmet up here. Is
Yeah.
I got to play down in the SEC against all the big boys,
It's awesome.
LSU, Florida. I led the SEC in touchdowns and
No way.
against LSU in one game and in the swamp, just living a childhood dream. It was
Yeah.
awesome. And then I went up pro. I played pro for 9 years. My first team was the Cowboys. I was actually roommates with Tony Romo. That was my only claim to fame. I never got rich and famous with that. Don't worry. But I bounced around from the Cowboys, the Bears, the Panthers. I played in NFL Europe. That's another helmet up here. The Berlin Thunder. We won a World Bowl over there, so I got a cool ring
Cool.
for that. And then I played arena football. So Bon Jovi was my boss in Philadelphia, and he would perform at halftime to sell out the stadium. Everyone was coming for him. It was a lot of like 40 to 50-year-old single women that
Yeah.
would, and then once he was done performing, I think they left for the second half.
That's
But it
awesome.
was fun. All right. So 9 years, and then I just did the natural, progression of life from pro football to dentistry. And no, I'm kidding. But
Yeah,
I
exactly.
got in this about 13, 14 years ago. I'm 47 now. So I've been doing this a lot of years. MVP I started about 7 years ago, and we are a team dedicated to pioneering and progressing direct mail, and specifically for dentists and orthodontists. So we have a really unique approach. I'm big on the tech. So the reason why I
Yeah.
bring up football in the introduction is if you watch any sporting event now, it's all about the analytics. These billion
Mhm.
dollar industries. It was just starting to get there back in the early 2000s when I was finishing my career. Mid 2000s was down to the ounces of water you're drinking in the fourth
Yeah.
quarter. And how many reps you do when you work out and all these things. And now you got load management and maybe it's a little overkill. But
Yeah.
uh, what I'm getting at is when I got a real job. I never got rich and famous, so I had to get a real job. And I got into this market, and I was shocked how lack of transparent marketing spend was for dentists, specifically. Meaning they're mailing out, 10,000 postcards, and when you call them and said, "Hey, you ready to mail again?" or "Hey, how'd you think it went?" I would always get the same thing. I don't know. Let me ask Mary at the front desk. I'd
Right.
literally docs yell, "Hey, Mary, postcards working,"
Yeah.
across the office. And it was interesting because it was really subjective, meaning, oh
Totally.
no, I think they're just calling price shoppers only because that she remembers this one call where they were asking about pricing.
Yeah.
Little did doctor know that the 5 calls before that she put on hold for 8 minutes and they hung up. And
Mhm.
any one of those could have paid for their entire campaign, but they didn't know. There was no real tracking and some things like that. So we brought technology to direct mail, to this old form of marketing that's been proven in dentistry for decades. We've brought the modern science to it and the technology and the software to make it more trackable, more targetable, with real results, ROI, rather than guessing. You're going to know dollar for dollar. And I
Yeah.
think where we've kind of really changed the game in MVP, and we can kind of talk through that as we go. So does that kind of give a little background?
Yeah. No, and that leads me to my first question too, is so why direct mail? I mean, it's so I know you have experience with direct mail, so I see that's probably why. But also there's got to be other reasons too.
Yeah, I have thought about that a lot because almost every year at some point, because we get asked all the time by our
Yeah.
customers, do you guys do digital or do you do websites? And the reality is we're a one-trick pony. And this is my line. I want to do one thing and I want to do it ridiculously better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And rather than be when you get into some really big, ad agencies or different things or marketing companies, they typically are really good at one or two things, and then the
Mhm.
other things they just throw on the plate because they don't want to lose a customer.
Yeah.
And so my approach is I want to do what we do best. And it's such a different animal than the digital space and the digital ads that you're creating and website creation and stuff like that. Now, there's still some design elements that are similar, obviously, but it's different. You're dealing with something tangible, a physical print.
Hmm.
Personally, I've always felt like I'm kind of my football career, I was always kind of the underdog, the small town kid, the kid off the farm, I was working graveyard through high school to make some money and
Right.
going to school. And so I kind of like the underdog feel of direct mail too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And it's funny you mentioned that too. I mean, Aaron, it's just I remember I was telling you beforehand, I kind of got into marketing trying to figure out how to make my photography business work after college, and I actually ended up using direct mail with a ton of success. So I was in the wedding industry, so I worked a lot with vendors, different, venues, wedding planners, things like that. And I put together a newsletter, printed newsletter it was more entertainment than anything else, but I would showcase my work. I'd make them laugh or try to make them laugh a little bit and then just stay kind of top of mind, I mean, and it was like an 8-page newsletter that I'd mail out to these venues, these high-end venues. And it was a great way to generate referrals, and I mean, those referrals were worth, $3,000 to $5,000 a piece. So it was well
Yeah.
worth the spend, but it definitely takes some effort to it for sure. So, but for all those people, I know you get asked this a ton, and you kind of alluded to this as well, but there's a lot of people that when they hear direct mail, they wonder, is this even still viable nowadays? It's 2025. We've got AI and all these things now, this amazing technology and all that stuff, but it's direct. Are people even checking the mailbox anymore? Or is that just considered junk mail? So how do you respond to that? Because I know that's a huge question that I get asked too, from my clients as well.
Yeah, no, a great question. The junk mail, and I like that because I think even in 2025, and I'll kind of talk over the last I've been doing this 13, 14 years now. It's even evolved in those years.
Yeah,
It's COVID and post-COVID and pre-COVID, and I'll kind of talk about that. But pre-COVID, it was rolling pretty well, but we actually got a spike during COVID and post-COVID. And why is that? Well, so many more people work from home now,
yeah,
and almost that is the lunch break or
yeah,
the coffee room in an office building, or these people are walking down to get their mail and they're almost more focused on it.
yeah.
And from a junk mail, and there's actually less mail in the mailbox because
Mhm.
postage keeps going up
Yeah,
and more people have transitioned. And it's actually had a big swing in this last year or two. Even the big, box stores, retail, they are pivoting back. Not all of it. They're obviously still putting in digital because it works. But the digital has, I could argue, sometimes that it becomes your junk mail.
oh
And
yeah,
in the digital space with so many ads popping up and
absolutely.
on your social media. So what is the junk mail in 2025? I think it's in a lot of different ways. And what I kind of try to combat, whether you're doing digital or direct mail piece, is don't make it junk. Make it stand out. You commented something that just stuck out to me when you were doing your newsletter. So, we've done magazines and
Yeah,
we've postcard, all different sizes, trifolds, letter envelope, we've done it all.
yeah,
I recommend a 6-inch by 11-inch postcard because it's a little bigger than the envelope in the mail.
yeah.
It's taller and longer, but there's no commitment. You don't have to unfold it. You don't have to
Right.
untab it.
You
It's
see it
right
right
there.
away.
So to not be junk mail, you need something that jumps out to them. And you said something interesting about your photography is you did something funny, and that was an angle to try to get them to engage, and then they look at the quality.
Mhm.
Similar in direct mail, it doesn't have to be funny. Now, I do have offices that are more gimmicky approach, but my advice is be authentic
Yeah.
and play to your strengths. Because even if it is and the other reason why I like the single piece, so I'm not like a Valpak where you're stuck in an
Oh,
envelope. to
Yeah.
another dentist because then they're just looking, okay, this one's 99, $89 new patient, 79. Oh, let's call the one for $19. They're the cheapest. That's the
Yeah.
worst way to choose your dentist. And
Right.
offers aren't bad. It's just when you're put in a box like that, it's normal to look for the best deal, so to speak.
Yeah.
You're a standalone piece, you're competing against yourself and competing for their business. So don't put junk on it.
Hmm.
Okay. Like be authentic. Use real pictures of you and your team,
Yeah.
real reviews. I was at a marketing conference a couple of months ago and I heard something that 85% of people will want a review to validate an office before choosing it. So that's pretty
Mhm.
high. That
Yeah.
which means for me in direct mail, well, I don't typically want them to go online. I want to give them enough information here that they call from this.
Right.
Because when they go online, what if they then Google other practices nearby and they see a
Hmm.
better website, a flashier this or that? You just made someone else money. So we
Right.
actually kind of create a capture point here. We like putting reviews right on the card. So it checks that box.
Yeah.
You have 500 plus five-star reviews. Let's highlight it on this.
Yeah.
We want them to
Exactly.
convert from this, not get lost on the internet and looking for an office a little closer or this or that. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, it's answering all those questions that prospects are going to have, and the fewer questions that you answer, the more reason you give for them to go somewhere else or not do anything at all, which is a viable option for a lot of people. They don't do anything because they don't have all the information. And so anytime that you can add that, I totally agree with you, Aaron. I think anytime you can add, especially that social proof, you can start to preempt some of those objections that they have. Do you accept insurance? Do you not? I mean, give them all the information to make a good decision right then and there, and one thing too that I've noticed about direct mail, it seems like the big challenge nowadays in marketing is attention. I mean, you mentioned digital and how that can be very very well easily considered junk mail because they were just bombarded on a daily basis. We don't even recognize that there's, I think this was a study, it was like in the tens of thousands of messages we receive on a daily basis, just through all of our media and stuff like that. We don't even register those, And so I think the real question is, yeah, is attention. How are we able to make it relevant so that it's not considered, like you said, junk? It's speaking to maybe a pain point, maybe their a desired outcome, and then it makes it so much more worthwhile. Then and that's what's cool about direct mail is you've got that tactile part of it too, where you're touching it, you're feeling it, and it's almost like you're having an individual conversation and you can't just open up a new tab. I mean, you can still on your
and
phone, obviously, but you have to do that extra effort to go and compare and stuff like that.
and it's a limited. So my thought on that is, the average, you're going to get a second to 2 seconds. I mean, I'm no
Yeah.
different than anyone else. When you get your mail, you're standing over the trash half the time
Right.
and you're looking. But if you understand the marketing behind it and the psychology, and in marketing we call it the reticular activator,
Mhm.
when you see things that you're thinking about. So an easy example for a lot of dentists, because dentists will say one of the things they say, oh, I don't look at my mail, or I don't look at dental postcards. I get them all the time. I don't look at them. I throw them away. Well, just the fact that you get them does it means you
Yeah.
do look at them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they don't mean anything to you because you don't need a dentist. You
Hmm.
work at a dental office. But think about when you need tires. You start to see every tire shop.
Oh, yeah.
No, they just start popping up. Or, I remember years ago, I got this car, and I can't remember what it was now, but it just was weird.
Yeah.
I started seeing them everywhere. I'm like, wait, people drove these this whole
Oh,
time?
yeah.
Yeah,
They
I
crop
thought it
up
was
everywhere.
mine. So that's where your reticular activator. So what happens in the direct mail? And remember, I've mailed over 100 million cards now for dental practices, all across the country, 49 states. Anyone out in Vermont, please, I'll give you a discount. I just need one more state. But what I'm saying is when you mail your first round, we typically try to have a more of like an introduction. It's more just about us. It's a
Yeah.
you're creating, you're letting people know who you are, where you are, and then as you come back to them with repetition, you always hear about the importance of repetition in marketing. That first mailing, we expect you to make 2 to 6 times your money. This isn't a loss leader. I don't believe in loss leaders. And I rarely do I encourage just marketing for brand awareness. I do
Yeah.
think there's a component of that, but my line is I want first downs and touchdowns. Okay,
Yeah.
first downs are people calling in, schedule an appointment. Touchdowns are when they come in and actually spend money and you make money as a business, right?
Yeah.
So first downs and touchdowns. But the first round you're going to get the low hanging fruit. People maybe that day they have an emergency or they don't have an established dentist. They just move to the
Mhm.
area or whatever it might be. It's the low hanging fruit. And the second time you come back to the houses, we start to see people push over the edge that aren't happy with the current provider, a current dentist, or maybe there's an insurance change in work, or they need to go to an in-house plan,
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. It's typically some sort of change or switch, or and then the third time we hit this home, and this is months, we have sequencing that we do with them. Third time we typically start to see the bigger cases, but you still get the benefit of those number ones because now you
Right.
have people that are in the area, or maybe the spouse saw it that didn't see it the first time. But on your third one, that's where you start to see the bigger cases. So we start pushing, more of the implants or more of the Invisalign or your bigger cases. We
Right.
focus on all your dental needs under one roof and kind of trick those out. So kind of helps you understand why there is importance in repetition in marketing. And rather than just, throw one out and cross your fingers, direct mail works or it doesn't work. There's an approach to it that will put you in the best position to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely patterns. So what would you say, Aaron? So if you have, let's say someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about direct mail," and I'm sure you have a process too, as you're talking with them, making sure that this is good decision for them and what type of patients they're trying to get. Would you say this is more geared toward a specific type of patient? I mean, you kind of mentioned both. You mentioned, well, several actually. You mentioned kind of the general new patient that's looking for a new dental home. You talked about emergency and urgent care. You talked about implants, some of the bigger treatment coming a little bit later. So what's your advice if they're saying, if it's a general new patient or if it's, let's say they're focused on a higher end, cosmetic or something like that?
Yeah. I'll be, really honest on this. So we have a new mover program where it
Yeah.
only mails to new movers. The list becomes available the first Friday of every month.
Okay.
So we grab that list on Friday and boom, we're printing and sending them out on Monday because we want to hit those new movers. So it's a new mover program where you just mail to certain areas that we predefine for
And so
those new
you're
movers.
mailing every week for,
That one, it only does it once a month is when the date is updated.
oh,
So
okay.
month
Gotcha.
one, month two, month three. I typically will there's a 3 month mailing and then they drop off the list
Yeah.
and the one that moved in is on the list. And you kind of have a quantity it's lower quantities though. It might be
Yeah.
500 because
Right.
you go too far away from your practice.
Yeah.
Proximity to practice is a really big deal in direct mail, more so than in digital marketing or when people are searching for implant provider, they're willing to travel further. But
Correct.
when
Yeah.
you're proactively reaching out, we see patterns in being closer to practice, and I'll talk through that in a little bit. Is being able to identify your best neighborhoods and your closest type patients. But so we do have a new move-in program, but our top product is just our general new patient mailing. Okay,
Yeah.
it's higher volume. You're mailing 5,000 cards or 10,000 cards is our average order, and we're targeting your best neighborhoods. And how do we do that? Well, we built some software we call Map IQ, and it's basically X-ray. Dennis can relate to this. Would you ever just start drilling on teeth till you find a cavity? No,
Yeah.
you take an X-ray and see where you need to work. We do the same thing. So we actually pin drop out your active patients, your good ones. We see
Yeah.
where they are, and then we identify the hottest neighborhoods or mail routes around them. So when we mail this to 5,000 homes, your patients don't see it. All their neighbors do
Yeah.
in there. So you save money and they don't see this new patient special. So they're not calling in, hey, can I get free whitening? I've been a patient for three
Right.
years. We're hitting just their neighbors in these hotbeds. And why we do that also is because it shows us where these best areas are. And what's very compelling are geographical barriers of entry, rivers,
Yeah.
uh,
Highways, stuff
interstate.
like that.
People
Yeah.
don't want to jump over. It's the other side of tracks, the other
Right.
side of town.
Yeah.
But too many dentists are just marketing it in a perfect circle. Oh, we go 3 miles, 5 miles. You've heard that
Right.
in different things, right? But when I do these heat maps, and I'm willing to do this free upfront, no cost for any office, is I'll pin drop out these patients for you and show you exactly where they're coming from. And regardless if you do direct mail or if you're doing digital ads or any other, even boots on the ground, knocking businesses, whatever you do,
Yeah.
are the areas that you want to target in these hotbed areas. And most of the time, even really successful practices only have about 5 to 10% market share, meaning 9 out of 10 homes aren't even their patients in these best neighborhoods.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Room to grow. Too often they try to get too far, and that just spreads your marketing dollar more thin rather than double down in these best areas. So
Well,
yeah,
what
new
makes
movie.
sense about
Well, sorry.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, it also occurred to me too, as you're not mailing to your patients, but you're mailing to their neighbors. And if they ever, if that prompts some type of conversation, like, oh, I just got this thing. Who do you know? Who do you go to if they're looking? Then that gives them a chance to kind of make a referral essentially too. So
And we
you're
can
tapping into
mail
that as well.
We can mail to existing, but we have an existing patient program. Sometimes
Yeah.
someone brings on an associate. We just want to mail to their patients and let them know of this or
Yeah.
a event or something like that. So those are your main ones. Now, new move-ins, a lot of people get excited about, but I will say it's one of the lowest response.
Yeah.
Meaning
Interesting.
we because the numbers are so low, you're mailing to a very small. So I
Yeah.
actually recommend the new move-in mailer only for offices that are already hitting their goals of new patients, but they just want to stay out there and introduce to the new people. Because what happens is they actually don't choose a dentist as fast as you think. They're worried about getting Wi-Fi, home security,
Yeah.
other things set up when they're new moved in, getting the kids enrolled in school. So although we want to plant those seeds early, a lot of them don't even call until month 4 or 5, 6, down the
Yeah.
road. So with our general mailing, when we hit those neighborhoods, those are included in those too. So those new movers get the normal card anyway, and
Gotcha.
from that. So anyway, just to clarify those two different type of mailings.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, so are you Well, yeah, why don't we start? This is probably a good spot for it too. So we talked a little bit beforehand too about some of the mistakes that a lot of people make when they're getting into direct mail. Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, what are you seeing people do as they finally agree to, okay, direct mail, that makes sense for me. Let's try it. And then they just jump into it. What are some of those pitfalls that a lot of people
Yeah.
fall into?
So this is one of my favorite questions to ask. If I'm talking at at a dental conference or whatever, I'll say, who's out there has done direct mail, and who's had direct mail fail, and see those hands. And
Yeah,
because for me, I'm not trying to hide behind anything. I want to genuinely know because what I typically find is that there's kind of four variables that need to be controlled. Now, any marketing, you could have a blimp flying over town or data, whatever.
yeah,
Marketing is going to work for some practices and it's not for others. That's factual regardless of what you do. But for
yeah.
direct mail specifically, I typically see these four variables that need to be controlled. So when I ask them, hey, so let's say, yeah, it didn't work for me. And my first question is, okay, well, what part didn't work? And they typically are kind of caught off guard by that. Because I'll say, well, did you not get calls? Did people not schedule? Did they not come in and spend money? There's a lot of different things there that could
Mhm.
impact the results, right? So let me break it down real quick. Number one is who you target. And that's where that map IQ is so important when
Yeah,
we do X-rays. It shows us, it also shrinks down your quantity of mailing because we're able to just target these best areas. And it's really compelling, especially for dentists. Now, if you're a specialist, sometimes it's less compelling because you're getting referrals from other dentists and stuff. But for 90%, 9 out of 10 times when we do this heat map, you're like, that's where I want to mail
yeah,
because it's
right.
pin drop, pin drop, pin drop in these areas. Okay, so better targeting is number one. Who did you mail it to? But there's even deeper levels of nerdiness that
Yeah.
I would go into of, okay, what day of the week did the card hit homes? I've found a variance of about 5% if you hit earlier in the week versus late in the week.
Mm,
So people are busy on Friday, Saturday. Maybe they aren't thinking about that. The mail's just, they're cleanup mode. But
yeah,
hit earlier in the week? Is it sitting on the counter throughout the week? And it's pushing and reminding you again and again
right.
and you call. So we do all those things logistically. We don't expect our offices to be, pros at this. I have contracts with Southwest Airlines and other third-party shipping companies. So we hit all over the country. Our pallet of cards, let's say 250 pounds, if
Yeah,
you're mailing 10,000 cards, we have them delivered on a Friday to local sorting facilities. Then they're sorted on Saturday and then in the mail slots for the mailman or woman to grab and start delivering on Monday and Tuesdays.
yeah.
So typically 8 to 9 times out of 10, we're hitting right on those days, which is really hard to do in direct mail. If you've ever
Yeah.
mailed a letter and understand how hard that is now, quantify that over practices all over the country. That's
Yeah.
how dialed in we are. And it's really important you're delivering. Okay. All right. Next is what you mail. The mistake, your sister-in-law designed it for you, or your brother who, freelances on the side and wants to help you with a design. Those are typically the areas where we see bad designs. Not
Hmm.
understanding how offers work, meaning offers drive different types of patients. There's cash offers for cash patients, insurance offers, your free whitening that you've seen around, it drives insurance patients typically because it comes after paid exam, x-ray, and cleaning. And people look at that as free. If I have dental insurance, that's free, right? I
Yeah.
just think I get two of those a year and I'm going to get whitening. I'm going to give this practice a try.
Yeah.
When you put $99 or 149 or whatever dollar amount, insurance people just don't look at that. Those are cash people because that costs them money.
Right.
And
They
they can
recognize what that
pay
is.
for $99 and see what's going on, and then they become a normal patient. Practices, don't be scared of offers. And my advice on that, and then bigger cases, if you're doing implants or stuff like that, like you want to do those, free consultations.
Yeah.
Those are the time I recommend for consultations, is for your big case dentistry. My advice on offers is this: the more confident you are in your retention of patients, the more aggressive you should be on your offers.
Hmm.
Give a little more if you need to get them in because they're going to stick and they're going to bring you $1,500 every year,
Yeah.
and plus their friends, plus their family,
Right.
and those futures. So that's why. But if you're not real good at that, try to fix it. One, retention and what the experience is, but be less aggressive. But something out there. Offers do not scare people away, and they don't just bring bad patients. That's a really bad misconception, I think, in dentistry, that if I
Yeah.
have an offer, I'm devaluing my practice. I work with really high-end practices, Beverly Hills and some places, and their offers are just as aggressive because they know if they can get that person in there, they're going to like them. So be
Yeah.
confident in your product, and once they come in, they're going to get hooked. So, all right. So number one is the areas you target. They make mistakes there. Number two is what they mail and not being authentic. The junk mail we talked about, right? Putting
Hmm.
real pictures of the team that make you any awards, any voted
Credentials, stuff like that.
year best dentist in whatever. The other thing we do is we don't pre-print our cards. So every month I'm able to adjust it to, hey, start straightening your smiles this summer,
Yeah.
rather than be back to school, rush. Use your benefits before you lose them. There's a different theme throughout the year. Don't pre-print them. The savings are minimal. If you use other vendors, the savings are minimal to pre-print, but you're stuck with the same 100,000 cards all year.
Yeah.
What if it's not working after the first couple of mail? So we want to be able to adjust it and be able to change it so it's always current. So
Yeah.
the third one here, sorry, I'm probably running a little long-winded, but the
No, you're
third
good.
common mistake is the tracking. And in direct mail, admittedly, when I got in the industry, that was a problem. People would mail out 10,000 cards or target these areas, and they didn't have the tracking capabilities. It was more, well, no, we ask people, no, we ask every patient how they heard
Yeah.
about us. Well, guess what? We put a call tracking number on every card. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's local for the practice. It hits our system and goes right to the office. They answer it, not us. Okay. Mary answers instantly. Hey, thanks for calling XYZ Dental. Um, so as that call comes in, it's recorded on our end. Within a few hours, my team listens to every recording. It's not that fun, I promise.
Yeah.
Uh, we've scored over 170,000 calls or something coming into dental practices, and it is crucial what is being said on that phone call.
Yeah.
That girl Mary at the front desk is making or breaking your practice thousands of dollars every day, every single day. And if she's putting them on hold, or if she's just a bubbly voice, that's nice, but there's more to the art. And hopefully your front desk has some training. We have some free resources. We actually do a free kickoff call with them to make sure, because it is a super important variable. Here's some scary stats for you. Of those 170,000 calls, 33% have gone missed or unanswered.
Oof.
A
Yeah.
third of your calls, you're paying for the phone to ring, docs,
Yeah.
and not answering it. Okay, you've got to have something in place to make sure. We created a missed call alert. So if you ever miss it, boom, it hits your phone or your email instantly. So they can call them right back. The other side of that missed call is only 10% of first-time callers will leave a voicemail. Okay, so if you're not answering it, they're not leaving a message.
Yeah.
What they're doing is then going online. Okay, what other dentists are nearby? Because they don't have a super connection yet, right? They're thinking
Yeah.
more, I gotta get a dentist. And a dentist is a dentist in most people's minds until they actually meet you. So make sure that's handled. Okay, and then how they handle it. So here's just a pearl tip here. As a call comes in and someone schedules, okay, rather than saying, okay, hey, great, Stephanie, thanks for calling. We'll see you Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Bye. That's what most people do.
Hmm.
Instead, great, Stephanie. We'll see you Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Now, is there anyone else in the household we should schedule at this time?
Yeah.
You will ask for more. 15% of the time, they schedule a second appointment. Just asking didn't cost you $1. It's
Yeah.
just a habit of that front desk to ask for more. 15% of the time, you'll schedule 2 appointments or more.
Wow.
Just so little things that we've found by listening to nerding out on these calls, we want to pass on. And we've done much more than that. We've done master programs of analyzing calls. I'll just, rather than dive into it deep, I'll just say one more thing. The most of all the things that we've tracked, giving their name, asking for their name, using it throughout their call, being kind, answering questions, all these things that you want your front desk to do. Guess what? The number one thing was that impacted if they scheduled. The number one thing was Sales 101. Did you ask for an appointment?
Yeah.
It's great to be nice. It's great to say thank you. It's great to use their name throughout the call. But if you don't ask for an appointment, you're failing
Yeah.
on the call because it's the number one thing that determines if they schedule.
Wow.
Wild, right?
So simple.
Right? Simple, right? Just keep it simple. Okay, so last one is just the back end. Let's say everyone does their job. We
Yeah.
target the right homes. We have a great design, phone's ringing, staff answers it, they schedule, everyone's doing their job. They come in. This is the fourth variable that must needs to be controlled. Your waiting room smells bad, or it's dirty, or they have to sit there for 45 minutes, or then they get back in the chair and the lamp
Ceiling
is
tiles. Yeah.
really dirty and or bad chair side manners or whatever it might be. So the fourth one is case acceptance. It's experience of them when they actually get to their practice. And no marketing company can really help with that. That's on the practice itself. Okay. So as we quantify these and we do our audits at the end, we actually match all of these names we hear on the recordings with their practice management software so we can give you a real ROI. Here's another stat for you. Over 30% when your office asks, how'd you hear about us? Okay, and then tags it referral source. That's what it's
Yeah.
in. Okay, referral source. We actually did a study. It was with a DSO once, and the number one tag was billboard, and they don't even have a billboard, but it was first on the list
Yeah.
because alphabetically billboard, then Facebook, and all these different things. So I'm telling you guys, don't trust that referral source unless you really dive into it. On our calls that we listen to, how'd you hear about us? Most people say, not most, but 30% say website because they're on the website, but it was the postcard they're calling from because
It has
this
the tracking number.
nowhere else.
Yeah.
So the staff thinks they're doing the job. They type in, oh, website, or oh, I drive past your office on the way to work every day. Okay, signage is the referral source.
Yeah.
They're literally calling from the postcard number. So that's why it's important to match those things and really know. And it's never going to be perfect because you have sources, you have referrals, and so anyway, that's a kind of a long thing, but those are kind of the biggest mistakes because it's hard to control all of those variables.
Yeah.
You're a dentist, down the mouth all day. You don't have time to do some of these things, and that's why I really am a big proponent of do what you do best and find who's best fit for you, whether it's your digital marketer, whether it's a coach or consultant or direct mail partner, whoever you use. You need trusted partners that align with your vision. I want real results. I don't want feel good.
Hmm.
I don't want feel good. I don't want, hey, because I can say, oh, well, I got you 10,000 impressions.
Yeah.
They hit 1,000 homes, right? Impressions are nice. They're kind of like likes on Facebook. It's cool to get liked, but it's just a first down. It's not a touchdown until they
Yeah.
actually buy something.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't take any of that to the bank in the end, you know.
That's a great line. I like that.
That's what's so important. So I've got two last questions for you, Aaron, then we'll
All
wrap this up. So one
right.
is, Do you see a difference between, fee for service practices doing direct mail versus insurance based? And then lastly, we just talk about pricing too, because I think that can be when people are looking into it, they might see, might feel a little sticker shock. They might not understand, okay, we're sending this many. What is the return supposed to look like? So talk about investment. But first, yeah, if you wouldn't mind answering, is it work for fee for service as well as insurance?
Yeah, in fact, I would say the majority of my practices now are more on the fee for service side,
Okay.
uh, because when you're accepting insurance, you kind of have a built-in source when people go to their insurance site, and you're one of the many practices.
Yeah.
Now, if you accept insurance, absolutely, we want to put, make it easy for them. Like you said earlier, it's just, oh, bam, I see my Blue Cross, or I see my, Delta
Yeah.
on my card, and it makes it easier. They call in and they schedule. It's a really easy schedule typically. However, more and more dental practices are calling and they're trying to get away. They're trying to get away from the insurances. They're trying to get in the fee for service,
Right.
right? It's pretty common. Margins are better, all that stuff. So, with that in mind, there's some different approaches for fee for service. And I start see office transition a lot more to putting these prices. Remember, we talked about these draw cash people, not insurance
Yeah.
people. They're real dollars. The in-house plan is on a lot of our cards now. Now, this is more in depth, but more and more offices are adopting an in-house
Yeah.
uh, membership plan, because they want to keep those fees, right? They want to have their own,
Right.
they want to be their own insurance, so to speak. And there's kind of different ways to do that. There's a simple line, like, less aggressive is no insurance, no problem.
Yeah.
And you get those calls. The next is a little more, hey, insurance is low as, 40, $20 a month or whatever it might be. Then this example is actually like really in depth. They lay it all out. It comes with, for 660 a year, it comes with three this, two this, one this, plus 20% off all your stuff.
Yeah.
So depending on the practice and if they're only, here's the question to ask yourself though, docs, is if this is something that always makes me kind of chuckle when I say, hey, what type of practice are you? Oh, we're fee for service only. And then I say, okay, let me clarify that just to make sure. What percentage of your patients do you file insurance on? Oh, 80%.
Yeah.
70%. Wait, you think you're fee for service, but you're actually still filing insurance on a lot
Yeah.
of people, on the majority. So be real with that identity. So, and if you're one of those type of practices that are high, that still have a good percentage of insurance, but you're trying to get over to cash or fee for service, that's great. But I still suggest to have multiple offers on your card. One that will drive cash people, one that will drive insurance people, because you don't want to lose those unless you're really ready to cut them off completely.
Yeah.
And then the third offer typically is for bigger dentistry. It's your bigger cases, your Invisalign, your implants, your all on fours. You
Hmm.
get one of those, you just paid for your whole mailing.
Yeah.
And so those are your bigger cases. But you don't want to scare away someone who needs 4 crowns because they think you only do implants, or you're
Yeah.
too focused on Invisalign and they think you're an orthodontist and you're not. But you know what I'm saying? So I try to
Yeah.
keep a little message to attract more of those households too.
Yeah.
Price. This is an interesting one. So postage has gone up more in the last 7 years or so than I want to say the margins, and more times than like 80 years before or something. It is crazy. In
Yeah.
fact, we have another postage increase in July, and
Huh.
it's really hard as postage keeps going up. That's the only time we raise our price. Even when tariffs are crazy high, or back during COVID when we couldn't get paper shipped in, we ate those costs as a company. But when postage goes, we have to move because that is the biggest cost in
Yeah.
direct mail. Okay, so what should you expect? What we're able to do, so postage is going up to 78 cents on a
Wow.
post. We're able, and right now it's 73. We're able to design, print, do the heat map, target, print it, address it, buy all the addresses, postage, everything for about 50 cents,
Wow.
because
Yeah.
we find every possible postage loophole you can. We do more of the work in-house in our warehouse so that the post office doesn't have to do it. So
Yeah.
they give us a lower postage rate. And by playing by their rules, so to speak, that's why we try to target neighborhoods as a whole. We can take out your patients, but if we'll target that neighborhood, whoop, it's easier for that postal worker to just hit this house, this house, this house, rather
Yeah.
than one here. one down the street. As soon as you go that, now you're a full stamp no matter what, plus the cost of the design and everything. So most of our packages are a little less than around 47 to 55 cents if you're doing small quantities,
Yeah.
but our average is right about 50 cents. So if you did the math, if you're mailing to 10,000 homes,
Hmm.
just under 5 grand to mail to 10,000 homes.
Yeah.
And if you do 5,000 homes, which is our minimum order, it's a little higher. It's about 28, something like that, about 54, 55
Yeah.
cents.
That's
So
awesome.
kind of give you a ballpark in there. And then how do you measure success? Because $5,000 is $5,000, right?
Hmm.
So I like tracking backwards. Ask yourself this: what's your average patient worth in a year? Normally, most practices are around $1,000 to $1,500. My higher end practices are higher, but I think most dentists agree in 12 months you should get about $1,000 to $1,500. Our data shows 1470 or something last year on their first year. Okay, so that's patient one. We'll
Hmm.
do the math off that. You mail to 10,000 homes. You can see with 5 patients, you're typically trying to kind of get in there to break even. Well, what
Yeah.
happens when you get 10, 15, 20? Now you start to see how that quantifies. And in the bigger picture, very rarely does just one person come to you from a household. Most practices are getting between 2 and 3 patients per household. A
Hmm.
spouse, couple, or other practices might be 1.7 on average or whatever it is. So we dive a little deeper, knowing that you're going to get more from that house, but we expect you to make 2 to 6 times your money in the short term on every campaign you do.
Yeah.
So we don't sell just fluff. Like I said, I want it tracked. I want name, numbers. That's why we listen to every call.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, we win together. My offices mail longer and longer with me because they know what's happening. And vice versa. If it's not working, to pull the plug on it. The direct mail is just not working for my area. And
Yeah.
I think that creates a lot of credibility for us. Go back to pro football. Imagine Jerry Jones, the Cowboys.
Mhm.
They're not going to throw touchdowns to me in the back of the end zone if I'm just dropping them all day.
Yeah.
You're going to stop spending money. You got to stop. It's just madness.
Yeah.
Well, you got to know as a dental practice when you're putting money into anything, what's happening with that. And I think that tangible approach, the real data, ROI, real dollars you're collecting, is what keeps offices mailing and happy. And honestly, even sometimes when it doesn't work, they're grateful to know rather than waste a year of
Yeah.
marketing or with a certain type. At least you're going to know for good or bad. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you stepping on, Aaron. This has been great. I think it's been very insightful for a lot of people out there. I know I get these questions all the time too, and it's been helpful for me too. It's answered a number of questions that I had personally. So thank you so much for joining us on the show. Do you just last question would be if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about what you guys do at MVP Mailhouse, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, MVPmailhouse.com is our website. You can set up right on there. You could book a demo time. Like I said, I'd be willing to do a free heat map for anyone that reaches out. Just mention this podcast and we'll do a free heat map for you. Doesn't matter what practice management software you do, Open Dental, EagleSoft, Dentrix, whatever you do, we'll pin drop out and we'll show you that X-ray where
Yeah.
you should be marketing, regardless of what you use, even if you never use us, no commitment or anything. We put together a proposal for you. We're not trained, sales assassins. So we put together, we're like kind of like when you do an x-ray, then you educate your patient. Hey, this is what I see. This
Right.
is what I recommend. That's exactly what we do. And we typically will do a really conservative approach,
Hmm.
an average, and an aggressive, depending on how you want to grow and what your budget is and things like
Yeah.
that. Then you guys make the decisions of how you want to move forward. But once you move forward, our team is dialed in. This is all we do all day, every day, from the design to playing to your strengths, printing, delivery. We print every Tuesday. Those cards hit homes 13 days later, Monday, Tuesday. So we're like really dialed in on those things. And just one last comment for Dennis. One of the things that I really enjoy as a marketer, and I'm sure you do as well, is we we really take a lot of pride in the success. Meaning we fit when we get a 5-star review from one of you guys, or you just say, "Hey, thanks, this is awesome." Or
Yeah.
one of my favorites is when a new doc's able to leave their associateship to be full time in their practice because they're
Oh,
just
yeah.
1 day or 2 days. I just love seeing the practices grow because we're paper pushers. Literally, that's
Yeah.
the of our game of paper pushers. So when we see results, we are really excited. And when we see the front desk do a better job after training, we get
Right.
excited because we all win together. It's the abundance, mentality in dental, and you're benefiting. At the end of the day, docs, it's your hands that are bringing blessings to these patients and changing lives or helping them get through life, whatever the case may be that
Yeah.
you're working on. And we get a lot of pride in that here. So we like being a part of that success story. And anyway, I just appreciate what all the dentists and all the dental offices out there in the world do. It's not a lot of people's favorite place to go,
Right.
but we make it good. We make it the best we can. So
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I couldn't have said that any better. Oh, well, thanks again, Aaron. Yeah, we really appreciate you having on the show today.
awesome. Really appreciate you, Mark. Thanks so much.